The late afternoon sun of 11th September 2025, a heavy, golden orb poured its honeyed light over the rooftops of a neighborhood that prided itself on its quiet normalcy. Lawns were neatly trimmed, children's bicycles lay discarded on driveways, and the air hummed with the distant, comforting sound of a lawnmower. It was a tableau of suburban peace, a picture that would, in the coming hours, be shattered and forever stained by a sound so abrupt and violent it would echo in the minds of those who heard it for years to come. This is the Tiamoya Moore murder story. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe now. Unreal, Truthful Crime. Tiamoya Moore, at 34, carried the weight of her world on her shoulders, but she carried it with a grace that often made it invisible. To her neighbors, she was the friendly woman with a ready smile, always dashing between her job as a medical secretary at the local clinic and her children's school events. To her coworkers, she was a reliable, kind-hearted presence, the one who remembered birthdays and always had a word of encouragement. But her most defining role, the one that consumed her every waking moment and informed every decision, was that of a mother. She was a matriarch, the sun around which her family's universe revolved. Her love for her children, a 17-year-old son, Jamal, and her 16-year-old daughter, Alicia, was a fierce, all-consuming force. It was a love that manifested in packed lunches, strict curfews, help with homework, and long, earnest conversations about the future. It was a love that was, on this terrible day, about to become the epicenter of an unthinkable tragedy. The argument had started, as these things often do, over something that seemed trivial to an outsider, but was monumental within the fragile ecosystem of a parent-teen relationship. It was about a party. More specifically, it was about Alicia's desire to attend a party that weekend at the house of a friend whose parents were out of town. Tiamoya had said no. Her refusal wasn't arbitrary. It was born from a deep-seated intuition, a mother's radar that pinged with warnings of unchaperoned teenagers, potential alcohol, and the kind of trouble that could alter a life in a single night. She had heard stories, seen the news. Her job was to protect her daughter, even from herself, even if it made her the enemy. "It's not fair." Alicia's voice was a whip crack of teenage indignation, laced with a tremor of genuine hurt. "You never let me do anything. You treat me like I'm a baby." "It's not about fair, Alicia," Tiamoya replied, her voice strained but firm as she wiped down the kitchen counter, a nervous habit. "It's about safety. I don't know those kids. I don't know that house. The answer is no. You don't trust me. That's what it is. You think I'm going to do something stupid." "I trust you," Tiamoya said, turning to face her daughter, her eyes pleading for understanding. "But I don't trust the world. And I don't trust a situation where there are no adults." End of discussion. But for Alicia, it was not the end. It was the catalyst. The no was not just a denial of a social event. It was a rejection of her growing independence, a reminder of the shackles she felt tightening around her wrists. The argument spiraled, pulling in every past grievance like a vortex. The strict curfew, the rules about clothing, the questions about her friends. Every parental dictate was thrown back at Tiamoya as evidence of an oppressive regime. Jamal, sensing the storm, had retreated to his room, headphones on, a practiced maneuver in a house where the friction between his mother and sister had become a constant background noise. He loved them both fiercely, but he occupied a different space, older, more reserved, often acting as a silent buffer. Today, that buffer was gone. The shouting grew louder, moving from the kitchen to the living room. Words were no longer just words, they were weapons. Alicia, tall and lanky like her father, whom she barely remembered, stood toe-to-toe with her mother, her face contorted with a rage that was frightening in its intensity. Tiamoya, though shorter, stood her ground, her own frustration and fear beginning to boil over. This was more than teenage rebellion. This was a fundamental challenge, a battle for the soul of her daughter. "You ruin everything!" Alicia screamed, tears of fury streaming down her face. "You have no idea what my life is like. You just want to control me. I am your mother." Tiamoya's voice broke, the professional calm she maintained at the clinic completely gone, replaced by raw maternal desperation. "Everything I do is for you. Can't you see that? I am trying to keep you safe. I am trying to give you a future." That single, unmistakable sound was followed by a chilling silence. Then, a few moments later, 2 more shots rang out. Boom, boom. Each one a period at the end of a life. Alicia stood frozen, staring at her mother, who had collapsed against the wall and slid to the floor. The reality of what had just occurred crashed down on her with the force of a physical blow. The rage evaporated, leaving behind a vacuum of pure, unadulterated terror. This wasn't power. This was a nightmare. Alicia remained motionless, trapped in a state of shock. The gravity of her actions was too immense to process. She was no longer a rebellious teenager. She was a girl who had just destroyed her own family. The first police car arrived within minutes, its siren wailing a mournful song that drew curtains up and down the street. The officers, trained for violence but never truly prepared for the specific horror of domestic tragedy, entered the house with caution. They found Jamal sobbing over his mother's body, his pleas echoing in the silent house. They found Alicia still standing in the hallway, compliant and catatonic. There was no standoff, no resistance. The fight had gone out of her completely. She offered her hands, and they were gently cuffed. The gun was secured. The scene was sealed. The news spread through the community like a shockwave. "Devoted mom, 34, allegedly shot by teen daughter," the headlines read. Tiamoya Moore was no longer. The funeral was a heart-wrenching affair. The small church was packed with friends, family, co-workers, and even parents of her children's friends. Jamal sat in the front row, looking older than his 17 years, his face a mask of stoic grief. Alicia was not there, of course. She remained in custody, facing a future that was now a terrifying unknown. For Alicia, in the sterile silence of her cell, the reality finally began to sink in. The memory of that afternoon played on a continuous, torturous loop. The argument, the gun, the sound, the look on her mother's face. The person she had been, a girl worried about parties and curfews, was gone. She was now a murderer, a statistic, a daughter who had killed her own mother. This is the true crime story. Thank you for watching this complete video. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel, Unreal Truthful Crime. Stay safe.